Loki may have begun as the fundamental reprobate in the main Thor film, however he immediately rose to turn into the important rival of the principal Avengers film. And he didn't keep down on the insidious the slightest bit. Loki was completely headed to do whatever it took in his journey to open a fracture in space over New York City. He slaughtered and defiled everybody in his way, and through his deceit and control, he figured out how to turn the Avengers against each other on different events. When the break was open, scores of Chitauri attacked Earth, slaughtering an enormous number of individuals. The Avengers revitalized to battle together against the risk and won the day by closing the break as well as by heaving a nuke at the mothership, killing all the Chitauri associated with the attack. While they were miscreants, those bodies, despite everything, checked towards Loki's somewhat great rundown of murders. Luckily, he turned out to be marginally less shrewd after some time, and formed into a wannabe of sorts, having given his life in a last-dump endeavor to kill his one-time supporter, Thanos. Agent Smith was one of numerous projects acquainted into the Matrix with look after request. Agents could expect the groups of anybody inside the Matrix, and supersede their structure with their own. They were intended to be superhuman, and close invulnerable executioners, who might research any peculiarity in the framework with immediate and serious savagery. They were viewed as government agents by the individuals in the Matrix, however in truth, they were aware lines of PC code, who eventually adhered to the guidelines of the framework, and kept up order, that is, obviously, until Agent Smith was decimated by Neo toward the finish of the principal film. Rather than leaving himself alone or erased, he came back to the Matrix, redesigned, and unplugged from the framework. He proceeded to contaminate the inhabitants of the Matrix with his code, viably duplicating himself again and again until no one remained yet him. Neo fashioned an arrangement with the machines to again enter the Matrix, and wreck Agent Smith, which he eventually did toward the finish of the third film, at long last satisfying the prescience, and striking a harmony among man and machine following quite a while. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner developed Ultron from the Mind Stone at the heart of Loki's scepter, which they captured from Hydra at the beginning of the film. Ultron was an advanced form of artificial intelligence developed to save the world, but the AI was malevolent, and interpreted this to mean he needed to wipe the human race from the planet's surface. He jumped into a robot body, copied himself onto the internet, and fought against the Avengers. He then went on a campaign to create an army of robot bodies of himself and engineered one out of vibranium, making himself nearly indestructible. He then enacted his plan to destroy the human race by turning the city of Novigrad, Sokovia, into a meteor. Using Stark's technology and his own intellect, he managed to completely lift the city, which he planned to crash down onto the surface of the Earth, mirroring the destruction caused some 65 million years earlier, which wiped out the dinosaurs. With the help of some S.H.I.E.L.D. friends, the Avengers managed to save most of the people of Sokovia from Ultron's plans. But he still managed to build up a hefty body count before he was ultimately destroyed. Thomas Riddle was a powerful wizard early in his life, but he was plagued by an intense hatred of his parents and himself for being born to a Muggle father. He grew up in an orphanage before being taken to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry by Professor Dumbledore. While at the school, he excelled but explored the nuances of dark magic, which further eroded any decency he maintained via the creation of Horcruxes, which are magical artifacts that contain a portion of a wizard's soul and can only be forged through murder. He took on the name Lord Voldemort, and became the most powerful dark wizard of all time, and amassed a legion of like-minded followers who terrorized the wizarding world, as well as the world of men. He killed without hesitation, including the parents of Harry Potter. When the boy grew up, he was continuously attacked and harassed by Voldemort's followers until they could return their Dark Lord to his corporeal form. This led to a great war, which ultimately saw Voldemort's soul trapped in limbo for all eternity. On the off chance that you glance through film scalawag records everywhere throughout the internet, you won't find numerous without a spot for the Dark Lord of the Sith. Darth Vader is one of the most notable film troublemakers ever, and in light of current circumstances, subsequent to tolerating the guidance and tutelage of Darth Sidious, Anakin Skywalker grasped the dark side of the Force and was initiated Darth Vader. One of his first demonstrations in the wake of taking on the new name was to slaughter the entirety of the younglings in the Jedi Academy. After this, his activities prompted the passing of his better half, and he betrayed his dearest companion and guide, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Vader then wore his scandalous dark reinforcements and ventured to every part of the universe, finding and murdering each Jedi he went over. Each Jedi he slaughtered was somebody who might have once considered him a partner, which makes his activities even more slippery. Vader then remained by as innumerable billions were murdered through the plots of his master, making him complicit in the passings of whole star frameworks. At long last, he was reclaimed by his child, however, that barely clears out the fantastically huge body include he left afterward. The Terminator films focus 99.99% of their attention on the robotic assassins sent back in time to kill specific people. But those individuals are only foot soldiers in a war fought all over the world in the near future. Skynet was initially designed as an artificial intelligence computer system the military planned on using to control its nuclear armaments. Shortly after being brought online, Skynet became self-aware and came to the conclusion that the real threat was humanity, so it launched the United States nuclear arsenal at Russia, triggering a global nuclear holocaust. The initial war killed around 3 billion people, and many more died soon after from the fallout. The survivors were left to fend for themselves in a post-apocalyptic war where the machines reigned supreme. Skynet sent Terminators and killer vehicles all over the world to kill the human resistance, and when the war was finally won by humanity, a desperate act by Skynet sent the first Terminator back in time to kill Sarah Connor, the woman who would one day give birth to John Connor, a resistance commander who became instrumental in winning the war. In the Star Wars universe, there are members of the Empire who hold a rank even higher than that of Darth Vader. One such person was Grand Moff Tarkin, a man Princess Leia greeted by saying, "Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board." His influence and power within the Empire was nearly unmatched, as he was the first person to hold the rank of Grand Moff in the newly created Empire. He was also the first governor of the Outer Rim. Tarkin was also the man behind the construction and development of the first Death Star, after taking that role from Orson Krennic as soon as it became operational. As soon as the Death Star was fully constructed, he took it to the Alderaan system and compelled Princess Leia into giving him the name of the system, where the rebels could be found. She gave him a false name, but before he could take steps to determine this, he destroyed the planet of Alderaan anyway, instantly killing billions of innocent people. It's hard to find a villain more pernicious than Sauron in all of fiction, and that's for good reason. J.R.R. Tolkien made a point of developing a character his readers wouldn't have any trouble hating, as he is a pure representation of evil and malice. Sauron was a fallen Maya, the creator of the One Ring, and the conqueror of Arda. He crafted the Rings of Power to corrupt his enemies, and he was first defeated in the War of the Last Alliance during the Second Age. But this only weakened him for a time. Sauron lost the One Ring during that battle, which robbed him of his corporeal form, but after centuries of lying dormant, he rebuilt his strength and his mighty armies to once more conquer in the Third Age. Because he put so much of himself into the One Ring, it needed to be destroyed, so Sauron could be killed absolutely. So a young hobbit carried the ring to Mount Doom, and cast it into the fires of the volcano, finally bringing about the end of an evil being who preyed on all that was good and virtuous for thousands of years. Thanos spent a large portion of his life killing half the population of the planets he visited in a perverted attempt to save them from destroying themselves. This made him the enemy of pretty much everyone in the universe, but things didn't ramp up to apocalyptic levels until he filled all of the Infinity Stones into his gauntlet, and snapped his fingers, resulting in the deaths of half of all life in the universe. That act alone earned him a place on this list. But not the one most would think. Most people might insist Thanos deserves the top spot on this list, but unlike every other evil bastard found here, he's the only one to have his work undone by his enemies. 5 years after annihilating half of all life, which included all single-cell and multicellular forms of life everywhere, his work was undone. Through some time travel shenanigans, he attempted to regain the stones and recreate the universe as he saw fit, but was destroyed before he could carry out his plan. Darth Sidious, otherwise known as Emperor Sheev Palpatine, is easily the most pernicious villain in all of movie history. The man defines the word manipulation, and through his tiresome machinations, he managed to kill and supplant his master, learn the secrets of immortality, develop weapons that easily destroy planets, slaughter nearly all of his rivals, and plenty more. With the release of Star Wars, Episode IX, The Rise of Skywalker, he returned to prove that everything fans had seen from the previous 8 films had been the result of his work. Trying to determine his body count is next to impossible, as any killings carried out in his name while he was the Emperor, or the deaths of anyone who was a follower of his during that time, aren't fully known. His work led to the destruction of at least 14 planets were destroyed in all of canon, which likely adds up to anywhere from 15 to 30 billion people killed. Deaths are only one aspect of Sidious' blight on the galaxy, as entire species were wiped out or enslaved, making him the perpetrator of multiple genocides.